What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another Viva Nutrition episode. Super excited to bring our Chit Chat series back. You probably all have listened to a few guests, and now we're bringing Dezi and Antonio back into the picture. Oh, there we go. There we go. We got some. We got some.
Yeah.
We were originally talking about the fact that Bad Bunny has been on the Tasty channel, actually making sushi. So that was like pretty interesting. So I'm guessing he's into food and cooking, not sure into nutrition.
And also how Dezi doesn't listen to Spanish music. Out of the three Hispanic dietitians, he's just purely rap and EDM. Anytime he hears reggaeton,
so you're Mexican heritage, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's not what a Mexican would say. They would say "Órale."
And you speak Spanish.
I'm not fluent. Nutrition Spanish, I'm good.
What did your family do to you? Like, why?
Wow, Andres coming in with the heat early.
All right, people have come at me in the same way.
One of my best friends, his mother is Cuban, and I always give him crap about this. I was like, your mom was not nice to you because she never taught you Spanish and you were in the crib.
People have come at me with this same bullshit, and I already have something already in the queue with what happened. All right, so I asked my grandparents, like, hey, why didn't you teach our parents, like that next generation, why wasn't speaking both languages in the home okay? And so both my grandparents had said, living in present-day New Mexico, they had said, we had a lot of prejudice around us, so we didn't want our kids to have an accent. We didn't want our kids to assimilate in the Mexican culture because we wanted them to actually assimilate into the American culture. So I've asked them about it. Granted, now that I'm talking about it, it's like it would be great to be super fluent in both, but like I said, I can speak nutrition Spanish. All of my Latin baseball players, no. Dímelo, broccoli.
Yeah, I would love to see like Dezi, like his real little thing speaking Spanish and see what his accent. That'd be fun. That's a valid point.
Now you're not gonna.
That's a valid point. Yeah, I can't compete with that. Cool. Well, what's happening? What are we talking about today?
I think we're gonna start with 75 hard, right?
Good topic. Well, let's go around the room and sharing our thoughts and our perspectives on it, and then we'll obviously explain what it is.
Yeah. So, from my understanding, it's a diet you do for 75 days. And by diet, I mean, it's a lifestyle. So for 75 days, you have to work out twice a day. At least one has to be outside. And they both have to be at least 45 minutes, I believe, or 30 minutes. That part I'm unsure, but you have to follow a diet for 75 days and you don't get a cheat day. You have to read 10 pages of a book that will help you grow every day. And I believe that's the basis of it. And if you mess up, so let's say you're 74 days, you've done everything, but on day 75, you decide to have a cheat day, or you decide not to read 10 pages, or you decide not to do 2 workouts, that means you have to restart over.
That's what I think it is. I'm trying to look it up and figure out exactly what is it that they essentially do. So the basic principles of the challenge are follow a diet. It doesn't specify which foods you include. He doesn't allow alcohol or cheat meals. It's unclear what qualifies as a cheat meal. Work out twice a day for at least 45 minutes. One of these workouts must be an outdoor session. Not explain why. Drink 4 liters of water per day, so about a little over a gallon. Read 10 pages of nonfiction a day. Take a 5-minute cold shower, take progress photos every day, and perform other unrelated tasks like a random act of kindness or talk to somebody in person daily. Those are like basically the rules that you're kind of establishing. Dezi?
You know, having talked with a lot of people, because like it seems to be something that's extremely popular with a lot of men, obviously. There's 2 sides of the coin for me. So the one side is like, hey, this is a self-development project. This sounds great. So if you feel really fulfilled by this and you have the accountability behind, let's say, the daily progress photos, okay, wonderful. Because I have 2 friends that have been able to complete the full 75 days. The other side of the coin of this are the other 15 guys that I've talked to that get into day 5 and then are back at day 1. And that's the thing that I have an issue with. Now, if we look at behavioral characteristics and behavioral change, we want to start small so that we can expand and cascade into these other different areas. My big beef with a lot of this is we're changing. Andres, would you go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yeah, we're changing almost 7 to 8 things right away, each and every day, which is not what happens with behavioral change. And so that's my big beef with it, just in general.
So I the whole idea behind it, I have a sort of like positive thoughts on it, but at the same time also some like negative things about it, because I've had clients have asked me, or people have asked me on social media. It's a mental fortitude challenge, more than a diet, more than anything else. So it's just essentially a way to sort of like test your mental strength, and to be able to see how consistent can you be for a specific long period of time. So what we know about habit development is that repetition obviously creates it. So this gives you that. So that's the way that I look at it. It's like, okay, like if you drink 4 liters and you repeat that 75 days in a row, there's more likely a chance that your hydration kind of like strategies, or your hydration task is probably going to be retained in a way or so. Same thing for all of them. The problem that I have is obviously it's all of them done at once. So it's definitely, I think for some personalities, I think it would definitely work. I think for others, like if you tell me right now, knowing what knowing what I know, knowing where my fitness and my nutrition is and all these different things, like if I look at this, I'm like, and I'll have a specific timeline and a goal that I want to achieve, I can personally probably like commit to this and saying, you know what, like mentally, I'm going to like commit to this and I'm going to do it. So it's like 2.5 months that I'm going to like, kind of like do this in a smart, obviously way. Like, the first thing that they talk about is follow a diet. Well, what kind of diet? They don't really specify. So like if I, for example, do macro tracking, and for me, my diet is essentially make sure that I'm tracking everything for 75 days in a row. And, that I can fit into like a pizza or something like that in there, that technically that it still counts towards like, this is a dietary lifestyle that I'm kind of like following. So there's, again, like, I think there's some, and I've seen people completing it and insane. One guy, he's actually a friend of mine, he's a dietitian, and there's another person like, unrelated on Facebook, and they share when they completed some really like, important takeaways as far as like, it was difficult. It was like days that you didn't really want to do this, but then it taught them a lot of that mental strength. So I don't think this is something for the average person. Like, somebody there's like, oh, I'm looking for something to do, a diet to implement or something like this. This is it. Because again, like if you never develop habits on training and exercise, or, your nutrition or education, all those different things like this, makes it a little bit difficult. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, because I think other rules that I've seen was no cheat meals. And I was like, well, what constitutes a cheat meal? And that's the hard thing. And Andres, I would absolutely agree. This is not for someone who is looking to just get into the mix. This is for someone who's a bit more seasoned, has mental fortitude, knows dietary patterns, knows what works for them, already is in the game to working out almost daily, knows recovery strategies. So someone like a dietitian, this will probably be like something that would be relatively hard, but they'll be able to accomplish. I think a girl on TikTok had mentioned something like, I'm trying the 75 hard, but I'm thinking I should try the 75 hard medium or 75 medium. And I was like, why don't you just make it the 150 like soft?
Light,
and
soft.
Yeah, then you'll be okay. Like, she's like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And I was like, well, most people don't, because this is sort of initiating you to like, you gotta succeed or fail. And that's the thing that I have an issue with.
I personally think whatever this is bullcrap, because I think it's feeding back into diet culture. Because as you said, a lot of people do it for 5 days and they fail, then they restart. So it's kind of like, okay, we know it looks like you're going to keep failing and restarting. So it kind of makes people feel crappy because they aren't being successful. Instead of like, how do you guide someone who has failed because they don't have a dietitian on the team or a nutrition coach on the team or someone that's going to help guide them. Like, hey man, looks like you failed on your nutrition, looks like you failed on your water, looks like you failed on your physical activity, but you did really well with reading the book. Awesome. Keep that up. But out of those other three things that we mentioned, what can we do better on this week? Instead of just trying to put all this on at once, because Andres, even you who does macro counting, do you have your clients focus on proteins, carbs, fats, calories, working out, and water all in the first session, like first call?
No.
No, right? Dezi, you do both behavior and macros. Do you have them focus on those 6 things I said? So hydration, protein, carbs, calories, fats.
I would if I wanted them to not be in the program in 2 weeks and not have a business.
So to me, it's I get it. There are people that I've even worked with that want a militarized program. They want to be told what to do. They want to weigh everything. Great. But number one, what happens after those 75 days? And what happens when you keep failing? I feel like this is set up to make people feel crappy, because the majority of people will fail because they have failed. 95% of diets fail, and we know that, right? So now we're taking a new fad, which not only includes diet, but now also includes physical activity, includes reading a book. And the physical activity, to me, is almost, I don't want to say insane, but crazy, because now you're asking them to work out twice a day, where once they have to go to a gym or they don't, and then they have to do another one outside, and it's like rain or shine. Bro, if I'm going outside and it's raining, I'm not going to work out. And we wouldn't advocate any of our clients to go work out in a rainstorm. If it freaking lightnings to get struck by lightning, you think 75 hard gives 2 craps and a left turn? No, we're not training Navy SEALs, bro. Like, and that's what upsets me. Like, I commented on someone on TikTok. They're like, oh, I'm doing 75 hard. And I'm like, you should probably find a more sustainable way. They're like, oh, you're not helping promote healthy lifestyles. And I'm like, so you think you're going to be able to work out twice a day for 45 minutes for the rest of your life? No. And then having this no cheat day mentality. And then there's people who don't drink alcohol, so nothing against them. But I drink booze, and no booze for 75 days. Fine, I can do that. But what happens after that when I go back to drinking? Am I going to have like binge episodes of drinking? Am I going to go back to drinking lightly? Like, am I really changing anything?
What do you mean by this fits into diet culture? I think a lot of people talk about diet culture nowadays, like left and right, and I get lost in it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I would say diet culture. Hold on, I got to hydrate, you know. What do I see diet culture? I think it's setting people up unsuccessfully. I think it's putting people to do something that they're not going to be able to accomplish long term. Because I'm not against weight loss, I'm not against weight gain, I'm not against performance, and when it comes to nutrition, but I am against people that are unqualified. They call themselves experts, but I would not. Unqualified practitioners that come in and sell a book about how to boost your energy in a week, or how to get flat belly in 10 days, how to get abs in 6 minutes. So I think it's selling or promoting something in an unrealistic timeline. Because I unless you could tell me, do you know of a way to get a flat belly in 6 minutes?
No. Yeah.
And I know you agree. I know you agree.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how this fits into diet culture, because this is not necessarily a diet. So, but I get the principle. It's like, trying to kind of push something, or saying that this is like, more effective than something else, or, which they're not. I guess like I have like, again, like, like positives and negatives about it. Like, and I think, I would, probably say that as a person that have done stuff like this, maybe not like 75 days in a row, is the fact that, again, like back to like mental strength and mental fortitude. I think that this can foster some of that stuff into you in a way when the right foundation has been laid out for the person doing it. Like if you ask me this, like it's like, I'm gonna go back to my example, and then not because I'm a dietitian, but because I have developed a very strong morning routine. I love to work out. I do all these different things, and maybe I'm not perfect at all of them, or I'm not like, as consistent in all of them. But then when you're telling me to do something like this, again, in my case, my foundational kind of base on like nutrition and fitness and all those different things, like this is for me taking it to the next level, and kind of, trying to again prove myself something, because I know at the end of the 75 days, it's not like I'm just going to like hand the gloves. I'm going to go back to simply like living the way that I was living. So again, I am not against 75 hard. I am against 75 hard for somebody that has no clue what they're doing, and then this is the first thing that they're starting to do. I think and then again, that's what a lot of people are like saying, like, instead of like doing like this or that, it's like, oh, I heard of like 75 hard. It's like kind of like a great way to do it. Yeah. And I think we would just need to maybe even compare, okay, what happens to the people that do 75 hard following up sort of like a flexible eating type of lifestyle, like where we do it, versus somebody that does keto for 75 days and what happens after, like, one versus the other. Is there, like, did you maintain, obviously the thing about like, reading like 10 pages of nonfiction a day? Like, did you actually maintain the whole thing about like, actually staying hydrated? So again, I think it's not the program. I think it's the person that will do it that will define, for me, in my opinion, whether it's a proper approach or not for whatever it is that they're doing. We do mostly deal with people that are probably not ready for something like this. But I think that there are other people that may thrive in it as a way to kind of like, again, push themselves like outside. I'm a big believer that in uncomfortable places is where growth happens. So whenever we're putting ourselves in uncomfortable sort of like situations, not necessarily uncomfortable situations, but in times in which, like, things are difficult or hard, like this is where it's an opportunity for growth and for doing something different with your life. So that's the way I see this. Again, this is for me, as in like, if I was about to do this, again, I'm going back and I'm going to reiterate and to repeat the fact that this is not for somebody, and which is most people that are just looking for a quick thing. I was like, I'm just this desperate. I'm trying to lose weight fast or whatever it is. Like, when that's the premise, yeah, I probably say, well, this is not the right approach.
I mean, this is a question I have for both of you. Have you ever had a client that came to you that used to work out every day for at least a month?
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
I dial it back for sure.
Yeah.
And dial it back. So why is this something that we're not promoting it at all. So let's clarify that. But this is something saying that they need to work out twice a day for 75 days. So number one, they're not including recovery, which we all know is a huge piece, an important piece, and a piece that most people skip. So now it's promoting working out every day, twice a day. And then what happens when they finish 75 days? They're like, okay, I still have to work out every day or do physical activity every day. And it's like, where is this leading that person to? Is it a life of true fulfillment, or is it a life of, I need to do this if I want to be successful? Because I agree, there's how I explain it, right? We have the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and the stress zone. We never want our clients to be in the stress zone, because then they're not going to be able to stick to it. We want them to be in the stretch zone where they're just stretching a little bit, and we don't want them in the comfort zone, because then they're never going to grow, right? But I feel like this 75 hard is pushing everyone to that stress zone, because of the things it's telling, like no cheat day. And you guys are right. They haven't clarified what a cheat day is, right? And if you're someone who's a heavy drinker and you cut out alcohol for 75 days, you're going to get results. You didn't have to walk twice a day. You didn't have to follow a diet for 75 days. You don't have to read a book for 75 days. And I do see that it does have some good things about it, but I just don't, I think for me personally, the cons outweigh whatever pro it does give, because I've been in that cycle where I was like, all right, I used to tailgate for Saturday football in college. I used to wake up in the morning, work out for 2 hours, like do the elliptical, like worst idea ever, right? And then go drink like a fiend. And then I'd be like, man, why am I blacking out and waking up with a pizza on my chest or like Taco Bell wrappers everywhere? Because I had this mentality that I had to work out every day, and that's what would solve the problem, right?
Yeah. Tony, you were talking at the beginning, like diet culture. On the rest, I agree. That's being thrown around a lot today, like diet culture. The way that I wrap my head around diet culture are strict patterns where there is no imperfection to be opened up to, which brings about that concept of like, I mean, I'm sure we all teach it to some varying degree, the 80-20 rule, right? 80% navigating things that help to promote your goals, and 20% is life. that's where I think this misses the boat. And so for someone who is able to wrap their head around some of the imperfection behind trying to do all of these 8 things every single day, I think that person might get a benefit to it. Even if they went to day 10 and then had to start back at day 1, in the span of a year, they're probably going to create results because they have the long-term goal ahead of them. Now, for someone who thinks of it in that way, where it's all about perfection or nothing, that person is more than likely, and I have a couple people like that in my program now that they kind of call themselves like 75 hard flunkies, where it's like, hey, they got into a pattern where it spanned into a shame cycle that they couldn't get themselves out of. And so, Andres, you're right. We need to actually take a look at the person and say, like, okay, is the all or nothing going to work for you? For some, it might. For most, it doesn't. And that's where I think this program and the types of people that do it, that's where I think they need a little bit more education. That's where I think, like, hey, maybe work on 3 of these things and then expand it, and then work on your 75-day hard or after you've tried to do this for 2 months. And so, like, that's where I think it could work for someone, but it doesn't work for most.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's like a very sort of like, for most, it's just not something sustainable. I think about it in a way that, you know, I see like the benefits of what he could bring of newer habits that are built, but at the same time, I see it as a way of like, you know, and I think, like I said, it's also depending on the history of somebody, you know, like again, like the whole diet culture gets thrown a lot around, but you know, I didn't grow up in a diet culture type of like environment. Never did. Like I was never, and I think that, and this is obviously as we kind of like look at our clients, is like we had to figure out where they were starting at. And when I talk about me, and that's why I'm like, I'm not against like the whole like concept of, you know, the people that are against the whole thing of diet culture, but me as a person, not necessarily as a dietitian, I look at that and I'm like, I'm not exposed. I had never been exposed to that, because I've never been in the position to be like pushed to like either look a certain way or like lose weight or whatever, since I lived in, like, you know, back home. And I know people around me that were, but I wasn't. So like, I think from that perspective, now we getting into that type of conversation, we have to understand people's backgrounds, and most people's backgrounds that come to us, unfortunately, it's completely different than mine, which is they did grow up in a place where, like, you know, the physical appearance was praised, and Latino communities in which obviously grandma and mom were like saying, like, you know, how fat your legs are, and like you gotta lose some weight type of thing, and those kind of behaviors that are
It's the worst.
They were norms. There still guidelines and norms in which, like, obviously families are brought up. So that's different. And then whenever you put somebody like that, like, these are rules and you need to establish and to put them into this, and this is okay, this is another set of rule books, and that's the way that I've always lived. So they are being part of like what the so-called like diet culture. And in that kind of case, I'm completely against like something like this for that kind of individual and that kind of person. I just think like a lot of times that we're thinking that every single human in the face of the earth is a victim of that, when in reality, a big majority may be, but not every single person. And I think that's the differentiating factor that we need to really establish, because otherwise, like, in this such a thing that becomes such a polarizing topic, that I've seen like dietitians like fighting each other, like in this environment on social media, like, and all these different things, like, you know, the dietitians that are going against keto, the keto dietitians that are going against like all the kinds of stuff. There's absolutely, like, because of this entire thing, like one trying to do right and the other trying to do better and all these different things, that we're creating such a divide. And now it's like, it's like, you know,
it's confusing for the consumer.
It's confusing. Right. So, and that's my problem. Like, that's my problem when it comes down to it. And that's what me as a dietitian, I take a neutral stance. I'm unbiased. Like, you know, you want to do keto, let me tell you what keto is. And then you make the decision yourself. You know, I'm not going to bash it, but I'm not also going to go in pro of it. I'm simply going to stay neutral. And when I stay neutral and I provide factual things and with knowledge that I've done it, all these different things, I think the conversation type of like kind of like changes, and the consumer can be like, okay, like now I have the facts, I can make my decisions myself. Like that's
Yeah.
what I like to see more, you know?
Yeah. And you're right in that too, because I mentioned this a couple years ago because I saw dietitians fighting over what is best. And I was like, I think the one thing that we can now all acknowledge for most dietitians, again, I haven't met every single one, but most of us try to teach patterns that have helped us to develop a healthy relationship with food. And mine has been an evolution. Like when I first started with eating disorders, it was like, okay, anti-diet, intuitive eating, mindful eating. And then as that expanded into the community health center, it was like, all right, let me teach a bit more education. Some of these people could really value from education towards fat loss and strength training. And then that evolved into strength conditioning and professional sports. It was like, all right, well, this is performance. And now it's a little bit more of like, just like you said, Andres, if someone comes in and wants to do keto, I want to educate them on what that looks like. And if this is something that they can consistently do over time and also enjoy. And I think that in itself, when I see dietitians arguing what is best, like we have to acknowledge that what is best for us is not likely going to be best for a prospective client. So ask questions. If you are looking to navigate and you think you can take a flexible dieting approach, what does that look like? I had a wife of someone hit me up the other day and was like, my husband really wants to learn intuitive eating because he has binge episodes and he really wants to learn. Do you teach that? And I said, I'm not an intuitive eating counselor, but I can teach him about mindful eating and I can teach him the education that he needs in order to do this. And that's where I think that there's the caveat is having the dietitian or the person that's teaching ask a bit more questions and formulate something for the person so that it works for them. And it's not just a cookie cutter thing that you always practice.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all of it. I mean, I've gone through personally what I consider diet culture, but you have to work for the client and with the client, right? Like it's all about what's going to fit their needs. And when it comes to me, do I promote macro counting? No, but have I done it? Yes. Is it something I teach to all my clients? No, I'd rather refer out to someone who enjoys it and is better at it than me, right? To be 100% honest, right? It's not that I can't do it. I understand the science behind it. I know how it works. I've done it myself. It's just not something I would promote. And I'd rather be like, hey, go talk to Andres about it, right? Because that's what he does. And I've done it before with Andres and someone says keto. I'm not a fan of keto. I know how it is. I can explain it if I want to, but I'd rather, if that's really what you want to do, go to someone that's knowing what they're doing instead of, no, I'll take it on and give them crappy results and not give them the best as a healthcare professional care, which I see a lot of healthcare professionals doing. And one of the main perpetrators of this, and I think they actually promote diet culture more than anyone else in some spaces, is doctors. I don't know how many clients recently I've gotten
Stay in your lane
that have told me literally that they told the client comes to me like, hey, my doctor said I should do keto. Hey, my doctor said I should do fasting. And I'm like, okay, well, number one, how often do you see this doctor? Once a year. Okay. How often are they going to follow up with you? Once a year. How did they explain keto to you? They said to just look it up online. Okay. And then I had one tell my client, you should stop walking and just start biking. And it's like, it took me so long to get this client to start walking actively frequently that it almost ruined her progress because she wanted to listen to her doctor. And it's just like, this doctor doesn't know what this person has going on around them. So diet culture to me is just how I grew up. Like my mom always got low fat. My mom never had bread in the house. It was always hiding things, sneaking things. I remember I bought this big tub at Walmart, I think it was, of like Cheeto Puffs. And she's like, you have to keep that in your room. So how is that helping me as a kid? Now I have to eat it in my room because my mom can't see it. So that affected me throughout my whole life. And then, as we all being Latins here, está comiendo como un conejo, eating any kind of vegetables is the first thing. And then I was always overweight. The one thing my grandma once told me, she's like, and it was a joke, but I got really offended, and it's literally been in my life, my whole life. She's like, hey, you're so overweight, you should probably get a bra for your man boobs. And that affected me for my whole life because as you guys know, I barely post pictures shirtless on Instagram because I'm very insecure in my body.
But
I have
you
low
did,
body.
and you look.
Yeah, you did the other day, bro. Hey, I said, hey, sun's out, thighs out. Let's go.
But that took a lot for me to do. Like, I've never done that. And I'm not trying to promote have my body, but for me, like, I've never done that. I've been super insecure when I go out. When in college, I'd always have like something funny on my head if we went to the beach so people would not focus on my body because it's something that I've lived with. And it's just been my own diet culture because I always try to find a way to get around what body images I had about myself. So to answer your question, I guess fully what diet culture is just how it affects everyone personally. It's just how does it, the way you look at yourself and what you eat. I think that's the best way to go about it. I don't know if that's the right definition, if that's the wrong definition. That's just how I
it's that's the way we got to look at it, and that's it's just like a case by case basis, and that's like the thing, and I think us as educators and influencers and whatever you want to call us, like we use our social media to try to like be polarized in those kind of ways, and I think it works. The people that are like either dietitians or nutrition coaches or whatever that are like vegan, then they're trying to be polarizing because they're essentially supporting a notion of eating because and that's the thing too, like it's hard for us dietitians not to use our own bias, our own history, our own background to kind of influence our way of teaching others. Like I could, you, Antonio, you came from a complete different background, and thank you so much for sharing that, by the way, because I know it takes a lot to obviously kind of share some of the things like that. But it's literally everybody's like coming from such a complete different place. Like my mom, my family never did that, and I did have some of my body image issues, and I sent it literally on an email, like here's my before and after photos, like this is where I was, like this is some of the stuff that I dealt with, and all the different things like like that. For me, my body image was related that I was just like a skinny dude. And literally I would walk by like department stores and like look at the mirrors and trying to kind of like get like my like the shirt like super tight to see like how much of a bicep that I had, and those things truly sort of affected me for a while. But then I didn't grow up in a household that was like, I was like pushed to hide food, or that I was, like, don't eat that because it's going to make you fat, or like you're looking, a little overweight, you need to kind of like improve. And then the very like, and that's literally nothing around me actually kind of had that, not even in my high school, nothing. And even the people that I grew up in, close to me. So for me, it was just like, it's just, I guess like as a practitioner, it's always going to be difficult to hide or to just forget that you were brought up in a certain way versus, for example, like Antonio or maybe you, Dezi, or or people like that. So it's difficult, but we need to always continue to do our best to always be unbiased and understand people and be super empathetic. But at the same time, like, we work with most of our clients are going to be overweight, obese, and I never was, but that doesn't mean that I can't be empathetic, and I can totally understand, or that I could obviously see what all of these people are going through. You know how many times I got jump on calls with people that literally, like, when I ask him, why did you want to lose weight? Like, they literally just got break down crying because they understand like the deeper kind of meaning of what that is for them. Like, that is obviously something powerful. And when people learn to identify it, then I was like, okay, like this is literally like the main reason, like what you've always been pursuing, but you never actually took a time to understand it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. It's just hard, man. It's hard.
So and I guess that's why I don't promote 75 Hard, because I know I could see myself in college doing this. Oh, sorry. You all right? You can't lose the host. Then we're going to have to call it Viv Radio. We'll have to change it.
My bad.
I could see myself in college doing the 75 Hard and going on that bandwagon where I'd fail every week and keep trying it and trying it and trying it and not be successful. And I could see a lot of the clients I work with attempting it and failing. And none of us want our clients to fail. None of us want people to fail. That's why we got into this healthcare field. We want people to be successful. And I just see it as my own reflection, as we all said, but I do see a lot of my clients wanting to try this, being unsuccessful because of how many times they've jumped on a diet that Monday. right? They fell off the wagon, now back on the Monday. So now they do that same cycle over and over on 75 hard and unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And that's where I see that difficulty. But again, personally, but I listen to it. There are people who are successful on it, just like the people who are successful on keto and every other diet that's out there, right?
Yeah, there are the people that obviously thrive on it. So that's why I think it's just such a personal thing, but with education needs to be obviously the foundation of any of this stuff that they're doing, like understanding the why behind every single thing that they do, so that's probably the last of it. I do think obviously working out twice 45 minutes a day, like it's a little bit excessive.
I mean, I could do it. It's not that I can't, right? But it's just
twice 45 minutes. So
that would
mean
that would
obviously
crush
waking
my
up,
body.
Well, I mean, if you're eating pretty good, like probably 6 days, you can probably hold on to this for a while. But like, because I'm thinking like, okay, you wake up at 6 and then
You got 69 more days, man.
You go on a run, you go on like a light jog in the morning. So I guess that would count. And then you go and do like your typical sort of like training strength session or so, like in the afternoon. And you rinse and repeat that for 7 days.
Well, you don't even have to run. You could literally, I believe you can walk for 45 minutes.
I'm pretty sure you can walk for 45.
But still, that's 45. That's an hour and a half. You're not including any drive time to and from the gym if you are going to a gym, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be excessive, but who knows?
I would like to see the numbers of the people that can complete that and then what their life looks like 75 days later.
Well, we'll follow up on that. Literally, I've had like I think one person, and she asked me questions throughout the process. Like sometimes, like, hey, I have a question about this, like nutrition specific, like when you're measuring something or whatever. And she just posted pictures of her sort of like transformation. And the reason, and this is interesting because she did it. She's a flight attendant, and when COVID hit, like when COVID hit, she was like not left out of a job, but she was not going anywhere. And because of like the pace of life that she was following before COVID hit, like all she did is like a lot of her emotions were buried in food. So like this is what I read on her Facebook, but I think she talked about like she gained some weight. She was not in a really happy place, and she did this as a way to kind of get her mind, in the right places. And she had the time. That's the other thing too. You have the time. Obviously you're not working, you're not doing anything else. So you can be dedicated more towards something like this. So obviously we need to figure out exactly what happens in the next 75 days now that you finish it and see what you learn. And that's again, like going back to the everybody's completely different and everybody's has different kinds of situations. And this is a person, her specifically, that she's never, that since I met her, I think probably like, I don't know, like 10 years ago or so, I've never seen her with a weight problem, for example, which is like a person that may have a little extra and like, body image. Like I want to look obviously my best and that type of thing. So again, it's such a personal, like personality based, like sort of approach that I probably agree that most people would not fit that, kind of like that bill, but for some you may, So anyways, well, that was a deep conversation.
That took a lot of twists and turns.
Hey,
took a lot of twists
because that's what comes.
I think
up.
we're gonna call this episode like this 70, so we can kind of put the diet culture thing. This is like the 75 hard challenge fit into diet culture. It's probably gonna be a pretty good clickbait option. Hopefully, we'll send it out the park. We'll see.
Clickbait.
Anyways, well, thank you, boys, for being here today. As usual, if you are listening to this in our Review Nutrition Radio episodes, let us know what you think. Let us know your questions. Reach out to us directly on on the show notes are all of our social media tags and channels in which you can directly contact us. Any suggestions and things that we should talk about. And of course, if you are loving it, make sure you're leaving a review, 5-star, please, if you can. If not, I'm just kidding. You can just be honest. But then, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in, and see you later. Peace out.